Hi, I'm Paul Wellstone, and I'm running for the United States Senate from Minnesota. Unlike my opponent, I don't have $6 million, so I'm going to have to talk fast. This is my wife, Sheila, and our children. This is my house in Northfield, where I've lived for 21 years. My son, David, farms, and I've worked with Minnesota farmers for years. We must stop the poisoning of the air and the land and the water. I'll lead the fight for national health care.
One thing about Paul Wellstone, he was never a cynic. And he refused to give in to that kind of cynicism that, oh, you can't change anything, it's no use going up against the power structure.
Paul Wellstone is, directly responsible for helping me to believe that grassroots activism, public policy, and elections could all come together to the benefit of the average working person.
Paul inspired people. He inspired them to get out of their cynical trap and actually make a change.
He had the capacity and the ability to say to all of us, keep going, keep moving, keep speaking up, keep speaking out, keep finding a way to get in the way.
We say that if it's the policy of the wealthy and the powerful, the policy of this administration, the policy of too many politicians, and the policy of banks to take away from have-nots and give to haves, then together we will not accept that policy, we cannot accept that policy, and we will defeat that policy.
Paul was authentic, and everyone knew it.
He was someone who took time out to talk to the elevator operator or the maintenance man. I mean, he really was in touch with what was going on in people's lives.
He'd come be walking down the hallway, across the hallway, and come to you, shake your hand and talk to you. He's a really genuinely nice guy.
We came down that WCCO has called this race 53 to 47. I would like to dedicate this moment to my father, who was a Jewish immigrant from the Soviet Union, who is no longer alive, but who I'm absolutely sure knows that because of Minnesotans, I'm now serving in the United States Senate. I'm going to do well for people. Thank you so much.
Paul came to politics in a very principled way, and his principles never wavered, and his principles were to do what's best for working people, to do what's best for the environment, to do what was best to advance a more fair and just society.
I ask myself the question, who's going to lose out? And the answer is going to be the children. They don't have the lobbyists. They don't have the PACs. They are not the ones who are the heavy hitters. They are the ones that are going to be left behind. We want a global economy that works not just for large multinational corporations, but works for working people, for human rights, for the environment, and for farmers, and we will fight for it. We will fight for it. We will fight for it.
Paul understood that people really want to be optimistic. They want to make a change. They want to make a difference. They want to belong to something that is larger than they are.
He didn't look at progressives, working people, and community organizers as just troops to get elected with. He really embraced them and believed that their real worth came after the election in helping to govern and bring them into the governing process so that they shared in everything.
I can remember when I first met Paul Wellstone. And of course, if you met Paul, you had to meet Sheila because they were inseparable. Virtually every place they went, except on the Senate floor, they were together.
There's still a lot of members of the United States Senate who can tell you that on the issue of domestic violence and violence against women, Sheila Wellstone was in front of the band.
She has done more than most people who serve in the United States Congress.
This was the crime that no one wanted to call a crime. They wanted to refer to it as family issues. Well, they took on the cause.
You can't say anymore that this is something that goes on behind the front door or the bedroom door. It's none of our business, and we stay out of it because it is spilling out everywhere.
He was not one of these politicians or one of these individuals or one of these leaders who would put his finger in the air to see which way the wind was blowing. He went with his heart, with his soul, went with his gut. He was a man of principle, a man of deep-seated beliefs, and he never ever gave up on what he believed in.
Right now, despite a desire to support our president, I believe many Americans still have profound questions about the wisdom of relying too heavily on a preemptive, go-it-alone military approach.
He was the only senator up for re-election who voted against the authorization of that war. And I think he felt that there was a very good chance that that vote could end his career, but he took it anyway.
I have to only do what my head and heart and soul tell me is the right thing to do. That's all I can do.
All the polls showed the public was supporting George W. Bush. All the polls showed this. He was up for re-election. I remember we discussed it a lot. He finally decided there was only one thing he could do, and that was vote against giving Bush the power. And he did. It was a very courageous vote.
Times like this, like so many of us, I'm thankful for the Wellstone legacy, but I think many of us find and see a void there. We need those big voices. We need those big ideas.
After we lost Paul and Sheila in 2002, I knew that we needed to create something that kept their legacy alive and kept alive the ideas that Paul and Sheila represented in the public square, and also those ideas that brought many people together around his campaign.
Since 2003, we've trained more than 75,000 progressives, folks running for office, working on campaigns, organizing on the issues that matter in their communities, people who are just really hungry to practice politics the Wellstone way. And we've now got people doing just that in all 50 states across the country.
And I know that Paul and Sheila are both looking down and saying, wow, this is great. If we can't be here, next best thing is something like Wellstone Action that can help others step forward and be powerful change agents.
Paul loved to campaign, and in his early days, my memory of him is him running back and forth on parade routes, him running back and forth on the Nicollet Mall with me on buses campaigning. And near the end of his life, he'd been diagnosed with MS, and he couldn't run like that anymore. And he would stand on the back of that green bus next to Sheila, and they'd wave at people in the parade routes. But what was so incredible was that they had energized so many people around them in those green shirts. Hundreds of people would run around that bus, so there was a sense of motion, and you didn't even notice that Paul wasn't running himself.
I can continue to say, and more importantly by my actions, convey to young people and everywhere in Minnesota that politics is indeed not about money and power games, but the improvement of people's lives.